watching this live because we've got Lee and Ryan in the house.
Inspiration Nation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on a podcast. Ryan back again. Sadly, Jose is with us too, so it'll be a lower quality show, but 3 is better than 2 or something like that. I don't know really. Guys, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
I'm okay after being insulted, but I'm still good. I'm
I
back.
saw your face. You enjoyed that little ramble I did there. You were quite amused by it, I think.
I did pick up on last week as well.
The
dream team is back, I think the exact words were.
I like to leave you little Easter eggs when you're not here.
Inspiration Nation's joined. Thanks, Lee, for joining the live. I like that.
That's okay. I'm glad to be here. Right, so anyway, Jose, as you were absent last week, I feel like you are picking up the conversation baton today, the talking stick, if you will. So, what are we talking about?
We are talking about today Steven Spielberg. And today,
who's he?
I wanted to share. Go on.
I said, who's he?
Steven Spielberg. I'm going to carry on because, Lee, I understand what you're trying to say here. Just to let you know, I watched the 50th anniversary of the Jaws movie, and it's something that really inspired me about this is that Steven Spielberg on Jaws, which I did not know, he went over budget, he went over schedule, and thought it was going to be a film that would undo his career. He even talked about a story where he sat in the boat that was in the film at Disney because he was so traumatized by the effects of making Jaws on his mental health and his whole life. So this is what I want to talk about. This was Steven Spielberg, one of his most hardest moments. And why do we do these things to ourselves? And this is the thing that I like about this is that, I struggle with mental health. I didn't want that mental health thing. I had that struggle. My mum passed away. That was difficult to deal with as well. Some of the things we can't help but put our things, we have to go through them, like mum's death and mental health. Yeah, part of that was probably on me as well, but we have to go through these things. But why do we put ourselves through difficult things? And I want to use the quote to accompany this about necessity being the mother of all invention. I think I've used that before. But I think this is a really powerful story around Jaws because it was the 50th anniversary. And I was so enthralled by Steven Spielberg's story about it was the most hardest thing he'd ever done in terms of his filmmaking that I did not know that when he made the film. And I just want to talk about that and why it is good to do difficult things, really hard things, and why we choose them, and talk about our own experiences with this particular topic on doing difficult things and why we should really push ourselves to do difficult things to the point in this one where he nearly broke. Literally, he nearly broke. So we may not have had a Steven Spielberg, and he thought this film was going to ruin him as director. It turned out to be an iconic film that shaped the culture of the film industry. Yeah, throwing it over to you guys. That's really what I'm talking about today.
So I have 3 little things at the start there, Jose, and you're throwing it over. First is when he was sitting in the boat, contemplating, was the boat big enough?
Oh, I love that quote from the film. So good.
Secondly,
go
sorry.
No, go on.
When you at the start you said I want to talk about the Jaws, massive long pause movie, and I was thinking in my head, he knows it's called Jaws, right? Not the Jaws. And I'd like to start doing this. So when we're doing this, like the E.T. and the Rocky, and I'd like to do all of that, like people do the Google.
Maybe this could be a new thing.
It could be. What did you say? I'll worm that into my lexicon. But third, and I said it, I didn't want to interrupt you when I said it, but it triggered in my head. The necessity of the mother of invention is my absolute number 1 favourite quote. I think it's so true, and it's fascinating when you look at it. I mean, all the highest periods of like human evolution is during those they say it's like war and those sort of situations, and like COVID was another example of that. Where we're doing this now with such a solid infrastructure that probably in the natural course of events is still about 10 years ahead of its time, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID and the necessity of getting as many people working in isolation as possible. I mean, we were doing Zooms, but the quality of the video, the fact that I could be live streaming this in about 3 different places right now, it just wasn't there, and we escalated because of it, and it is all back to that of necessity invention. In fact, I'll try not to take up too much of everyone's time here, but I watched a documentary when I was on my little sabbatical a few weeks ago, off with the kids, which was like gave you the first instance of this. So it's called Humans. It's on BBC iPlayer, available worldwide. Really, really interesting. And one of my kids wants to be I think you call it a paleoanthropologist, which is the study of human evolution. So this was right up her street, and we gave it a watch, and that's what it was about. It's about where we came from, and I'll get this all wrong because it's going from my memory on it, but I loved it, and I thought I'll talk about this on a podcast one day, and you've given me the in. Is way back when we were all kind of stumbling around Africa a little bit in little tribes, and we just got started, and we were living like animals, for want of a better phrase. There wasn't really anything, and there was this massive climate change that happened, like huge, that it went from this vast tropical bountiful land where we didn't have to try very hard to desert, like almost like that. There was just this huge climate shift, and suddenly we had to survive in these really desolate, arid, unforgiving conditions, and the ones who survived are the ones that could adapt and innovate and come up with ways to find food, to store water, to create shelter. And within each group, and say each group, we were everywhere, the ones who could innovate were the ones that survived. And in fact, once the climate shifted back again and things settled down, the only people left were the ones who could innovate and could adapt and could change. So suddenly our gene pool had evolved massively in such a short period of time, because all that was left was people and suddenly there was this, we started settling towns, cities, invention started happening, because that's all that was left. And that was like the first time of that necessity being a mother of invention. And I was like, that effectively is why we are who we are now. We might have never started to organise and adapt and innovate if there hadn't been that necessity to survive. And I think that kind of set us off, and I think it's always been the thing all the way through. So I really love that. But it brings it back to what you've said, because Jaws wasn't a necessity, but it was for Senor Spielbergo, the Mexican counterpart of Steven Spielberg, which is a great Simpsons deep cut quote. But it was for him, because he decided to do this, and once he started doing it, there was no option but to do it, and he kept going, and there'd have been umpteen opportunities to be like, no, that's enough, I'm out, but he didn't. And that despair moment in the boat is him like, I have to do this, I can't fail, I'm gonna make, and it's horrible, and you push through it, but there was no option but to keep going for him. And that's his mentally in his head. I've decided I want to do this, I'm going to push myself, I want to make this, and it is going to happen. And it's not easy, and we know what it led to. Like you said, it changed film. It's one of the most iconic films there is. It's on so many people's top 10, top 5, top 1 film lists, and was really early in one of the greatest careers in film production, film directing, everything like that. But it's because of that mentality. If it wasn't for the fact that he would put himself through that to achieve what he wanted to achieve for himself, he wouldn't. He'd have just given in. And I would say this a lot, it's people's, how broad their shoulders are, people's level of resilience, how much they can take on, how much they're willing to put in and sacrifice to get where they want. And it's a pure mindset. And I think it is, if you could bottle it, it's the difference between success and not success, which I know isn't the opposite of success, but I couldn't think of a word.
Right, really like that.
I'm done. I saw you smiling, Jose. I like it. So I'll leave all of that out there for now.
Yeah, it's really good. I really like that bit about pushing through bit, because that's the hard bit. You see a lot of people fall at that hurdle, don't you? Oh, I just got to put through. And sometimes the decision is to not to do it, but he
And
made
you'll
the decision
completely
to do it.
rationalise why you've got no other option but
Yeah,
to give up. And don't get me wrong,
yeah,
there's times when that is the case, but yeah, he's just
yeah,
not not done that. And
amazing.
there must have been so many chances to kind of cut his
Oh,
losses.
huge. Even the TV studio was saying you're well over budget. You're well. I know he was thinking, but we're going to come down and end it. And even when they launched it, the showing, they didn't know whether it was going to hit or not, and it just
I
did.
think it did all
But
right,
yeah,
didn't it?
it did all right, didn't it? I mean, it's just I just didn't know any of that though. That whole bit
I
about
love that.
him
Yeah,
struggling, the shark wasn't working. They built this shark and it wasn't working. It kept failing. The model. Anyway, it's a brilliant documentary. I'd encourage people to go watch it just from the point of pure resilience and the stories from all the actors, and it's fantastic.
there's
I'd
a
encourage you to watch it anyway.
there's a
Yeah, go on.
series. I'll give you a check and to talk in a second as well, Ryan. But there's a series on Netflix you haven't seen it, and obviously these things are, you know, dramatise isn't the right word, but you know they tell the right story to make it entertaining. But it's called Beyond the Movies or Behind the Movies or something like that. And it's a story of different films, quite iconic films, and they're all kind of the same. There's so many points that they didn't happen, you know, through the writing process or studios not wanting to take it on or getting turned down or issues when they're filming or massive problems they got to overcome that take things in a direction. And these things that are just iconic, for want of a better word, and just there and you just take for granted, how close these things came to never happening is crazy. I'd really encourage, if you like that story and you haven't seen it, go and watch that because it's fascinating.
Love that.
Grifter. So the cinema is a place we used to go to watch films back in the day. You've probably not heard of them. And
Sure.
Jaws was one of them. Right, what do you think?
Sure.
What do you think?
I have seen Jaws, surprisingly. Um, I think that you touched on a point, Lee, about Jaws not being a necessity, but it was a necessity to Spielberg. I think I think there's probably more to the original quote than probably what we've tagged it with. That necessity is the cause of all invention. I don't know. I feel like for me there's a bit more to it. So necessity might come up with the idea, but it's almost like creativity pushes it home, if that makes sense. Because the way I see it is there would have been a lot of ideas that people would have needed hundreds and hundreds of years ago that they probably didn't have the resources to be able to afford to create or invent or logistically have the way to do it. A lot of isn't a well, I could be really wrong here, but aren't a lot of our flight mechanics based off of a lot of Da Vinci's work that he did 500 years ago? I'm not 1,000,000% if that's stuck, but I think some of the early work that he did led other people to be able to progress it further. And it might be that people come up with the right ideas through necessity or through creativity. They get a spark of creation, but they don't always have all the resources to do it. And that can happen on big scales and that can happen on smaller scales. We see, these days around, I say these days, but even in our lives, you'll want to start a project perhaps at work, but perhaps don't have the time or the people to dedicate to that piece of work, or perhaps you want to upsize your house or move somewhere else and you don't quite have the monetary backing or the equity in your house or whatever it is, the phrase that you want to use, to be able to kind of push that forward. So I do think necessity creates invention, but I would say that curiosity or creativity or desire to achieve probably sustains it. I don't know if that's probably the best way to explain it. I think it's very much as time's gone on hundreds of years ago that the balance between creativity and necessity has become a bit more level. Because I think, well, I don't know, because social changes happen as well. I was going to say that I think these days a lot of things are created or invented for creativity reasons rather than necessity reasons. And I think as time's gone before, it would heavily have been the other side of that. Things would have been created for necessities reason rather than luxuries reason, if that makes sense. Um, but I suppose there's more money in the world now, and there's more people to come up with these ideas. And whilst not everything's perfect, there are more platforms for more people to succeed from and build from. So that's probably why one of the reasons why that's started to flip around the other way, I guess.
I still think, and
um,
the opportunities there is as also it's the execution, because the creativity is
yeah,
the ideas, and I use the moon, and I think I've said this already. Moon landings is always my favourite example for this, because in 1961, I won't do a JFK impression mostly because I can't. He said that by the end of this decade we will land on the moon. And they didn't land on the moon in 62 or 63 or 64 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. They landed on the moon in 1969. And I dare say if he'd have said within the next 20 years we'll land on the moon, they'd have landed on the moon in 1979. And that's where they decided to do it. And they had an extra layer of necessity, which wasn't just the pledge, it's the fact they were competing with somebody else who was trying to do it as well. So because of that, they threw all of their resources into it. But I dare say the pace, the pressure, the willingness to cut something somewhere else got more and more intense the closer you got to that 1969.
yeah. The underlying point I think we're kind of making the same one is that I think as time's gone on and as we've reached more futuristic times, what people class as a necessity has become very different.
Yeah,
Um, so people, JFK will have made that pledge, and the American government or whatever government it was will say that it's a necessity that they meet that target to meet their political or economic goals, and that then becomes a necessity for the team, the administration, whatever you want to refer to it as, to be able to meet that goal. But again, I think 500 years ago, there probably weren't a lot of parliaments and a lot of there were well, obviously there would have been some, but probably not as widespread as what it is now, especially not in America. And I'm not sure those had been the debates. It would have been about what day so and so can go hunting for fish or whatever it was, because the necessity of life has just changed completely. It's almost like what you would put as Maslow's hierarchy of needs is totally different now to what it was 5 years ago at that level, but the overall principle remains the same.
yeah,
So to survive on your base level, you need to have food, warmth, uh, probably clean water. So those basic things, and that's still the same, but it scales so much more now in the 21st century up than what it would have done 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago.
yeah. Which I think good. Yeah, all makes sense. And I think you've got there's almost two levels of necessity, because that's all the external necessity, if you like, that's put on you, and pressure comes from elsewhere. Or you might set, but then you're held to account from different people, and then it's where you prepared to set your bar internally. So at the moment, I spoke to you guys before. Just aside, I've just started using my cross trainer that's been here in my room for the last 7 months, and I've just started using it. And the reason I've just started using, well, it's twofold. I've just come off of like a DIY project I was doing, which was my excuse to not do it. But also, I'm going on holiday in about a month, and I really don't want to buy any new swimming shorts or chino trousers where I go to dinner. So I've got a bit of extra oomph to make sure I just do this bit of exercise to keep my momentum going from my project stuff I was doing. But I dare say when I get back from holiday, there'll be more reason to be like, tomorrow, because I haven't got that new. Now I've set that. That's my own internal deadline. That there could be umpteen reasons to now and then I find a reason. It's fine. It's not a problem now. I'll just go and buy some new trousers. They don't have to fit properly. But I think I know myself. I'll keep to it, but there won't be such a reason to do it when I get back, and I can see it dropping off. And that's again where I'm setting my own mental necessity. What is that line of necessity in my head? And I dare say there's a lot of years that have gone by where exercising just to make sure I stay as I am now or slightly slimmer I wouldn't have even considered doing it, because the necessity would have been further down. And it's all self how you kind of justify it in your head, I think, a little bit. And that's how I use it. That's my reminder to myself that in theory, anything's possible. It just comes down to how important I make it. Even with the plane analogy, like Ryan, because there's always that mind-bending thing of the fact that there was like 50 years between the Wright brothers' flight and when we landed on the moon, which is just insane as to how quickly that all progressed once the ball started rolling. And like you said, there was Da Vinci stuff way before. But all of this is, and this is a terrible example you can pick to pieces, but all of it's possible because we did it. It's not like there's something magical that appeared in the world that wasn't there before. There's inventions in the world, but they were all invented. So if at that point, France, that's where it was, decided every resource we've got will go into landing on the moon, in theory, you could have really escalated. There's 100 million other things that never would have happened, but we could have escalated through that path to landing on the moon if we'd have been like, this is the most important thing. In realism, it's all building on, standing on the shoulders of the giants, isn't it? You iterate on what's come before. And I just think these periods of necessity give us that little kick up the arse now and again. But back to the creativity point, there's just so much more that's possible for people to conceive now because of all that's come before.
There's probably a bit of a subtext to this podcast that any big scale problem in the world could actually be solved if enough people wanted to solve it.
Absolutely right, 100%.
And you can get yourself into quite a few conspiracy theory pickles if you end up thinking that way about everything.
That could go, absolutely. But again, it's what is, there is a point where that necessity drops off, or that, but I just think COVID is that great example to show that anything is possible if we really just. Can you say even now take it for granted, but the technology infrastructure was shocking compared to what we've got now.
Yeah, I really like this, and I was going to say, talking from personal perspective, I really like the way you provide your personal perspective around. It's in my mind about where my necessity is. I really like that because I think this is important. We've got this 10,000-foot view of, yes, we got a person to land on the moon. I think now, how do we draw this back to our everyday lessons and what have we learned from this? And I think, Lee, you've always sort of said about your clothing for your holiday, and I think that's a really good point. And I talk about this podcast about we look to go live every week. We missed a couple of weeks, I think was one stage, but we've kept this up for 5-6 years. And I think the question for me is, how do we apply this to now? How can we get this more? And another question I've got in mind when you're talking, do you think there's enough of this necessity driving behaviour right now?
I don't think people no, that's not true. You could, it's optional, you could harness this as a tool to really push you. That again, grounding it again, how many people do a massive blitz of their house and make it sparkling just before someone's coming over? And then you think, oh, this is lovely, I'll keep it this way. And then the next time you do a massive blitz is just... Now, in theory, you could do that every week because you did it then just beforehand, but you don't have that driving... You've not made it, and I'm not saying you should make it necessary, by the way. It's just another example of where those things come in. But I think you can choose to make things necessary if the drive's big enough. But you've got to set that. And it's a choice. Some things won't, no matter what you do, some things just won't be important enough to take up an extra 10, 15, 20% of the time of your resources, and some things will. And you choose what those things are against a mix. Back to what Ryan was saying. Competing against God knows how many other external forces that are also driving that.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that other quote, and I think I've said it before, a person who has a strong why can bear any how. It's just the price, the sacrifice. I really love that one. So if you've got a strong enough reason, like you've just been saying, Lee, about doing the deep clean when people are coming around or whatever you wanted to say, because the why is, I want to make sure this looks nice when people come around. That's a necessity driver, and that's the why. So you're going to bear the housework. Go on.
Because it's all sacrifice. It's money, time, relationships, fitness, whatever. Everything you do, you're sacrificing something somewhere, and it's how much you're prepared to put into it.
So is this podcast boiling down to what are we prepared to sacrifice for the things that we want to
And I
achieve?
didn't really think that's what it would be, but I think it is. It's how how deep are you prepared to go? But that comes down to how important it is to you as well.
Yeah, so the reflection is how important is this to you, what price you're prepared to pay? Because Steven Spielberg paid quite a big price for that success, but the long-term effects of that pain are huge. I mean, it's iconic, isn't it? Going back to right at the top of this podcast, I suppose it's
Absolutely.
about asking that question, isn't it? And I suppose the takeaways of what we're taking away from today, I don't know, but yeah, Lee, what do you think? I'm Ryan.
I was just going to say another thing popped in my head on that sacrifice. You know when you see here, like someone becomes new prime minister, or because we get so much American stuff, someone becomes president, and you look at that picture of them 4 years before when they started and what they look like now, and the aging is just terrible. Face is withered, hair has gone grey, if it's still etc. And it's that stress, but again, they're obviously prepared. That's the sacrifice bit, isn't it? This is where I want to be. This is what I want to achieve. I want to do it, but the toll is hard, and only so many people can bear that. I think. Is what that is my what are you prepared to sacrifice? I think, and not as a challenge to people. It's a realistic conversation. Some things just aren't worth it, and some things are. And I think once you commit to that, it makes it easier to start building out a plan for whatever you're trying to do. And like we said, that could be landing on the moon, or it could be trying to go down a inch or so on your waist for something that's coming up in 3 months. So you can apply this to the smallest activity. So you won't give the details, Ryan. It's your story to tell, but you've had an exact version of this the last 3 weeks, where I dare say it's pushed you to do
Mm.
things that you wouldn't have been looking at or doing and made happen because I need to do this.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But I don't know. Sometimes for me, it's like problem happen, I fix. And sometimes the way I have to approach stuff, and I try not to put things on too much of a grander scale if I can help it.
Look at that.
I try.
Your
I love that.
laid back approach to my
I try.
hyperbolic approach.
I just wanted to give a shout. I realised a couple of things. Ruth has followed me on here on TikTok. We've got some likes going on. We've got Anne joining. We joined. I knew there was a MK says hello. Been some real good activity on TikTok actually. Going back through, there was someone who said I'm just saying hi to a few people, but it's been really good on TikTok. Hello from Burner. I'm just saying. I've been yeah. It's hard to keep a sometimes track on TikTok when we're talking, but getting some likes coming through,
Love it.
which is good. Oh, Lee, you're liking it. I can see that.
I just throw in a
Precious
couple.
is here. I've seen Precious before. Welcome, Precious. Love that. And again, I'm just going to repeat out. Ruth, thank you for following. Really appreciate you. So it's really good. And Zippity joined. So there you go. Appreciate that. And those on the chat, please feel free to ask a question if we have time. I don't know. Oh, we've got 9 minutes. We've got 9 minutes left by the looks of it on the timer.
Yeah.
But yeah, feel free to ask a question. But yeah, if
I
I get a
think
question, I'll shout it out.
shout it out, but I think there are some takeaways. This is a good food for thought one. I love this bit. It's just good, and the Jaws bit is a great analogy on it. It's a great example of someone doing that. And like you said, that's a very inspiring story because look what it led to. And it's the other thing that makes me think of is the whole iceberg thing. Is everyone sees the success, but not what goes behind it to make it happen, which are all great things. You referenced TikTok there, so I'll just say Jose Noya-Inspiration. Put it into the Google and follow Jose on predominantly the YouTube and the TikTok, and you'll see him live each of it. Well, I noticed you're getting a bit more on the Facebook as well. You put quite a nice post. About your
Instagram,
mum
yeah,
up
I'm saying
there, I
Instagram.
saw. Is it on Instagram?
Yeah,
So
I'm popping
he's
up a
all
little
over
bit.
the show.
Yeah, trying to go a little bit
Loves a
more.
bit of social. So if you want a bit of Joe in your day, every day, stick him in Google, follow on your favourite platform, and he'll be there. Personally, I try and avoid Joe other than this 1.5 hour a week. But if you want to see him, then absolutely.
Yeah, he absolutely loves this, as you can tell, can't you? He loves it. He loves to
Feels
get a
like
bit of me.
an
Not yes.
obligation that I just need to do every week now.
He
Right.
loves it. He loves
Any
it really.
final thoughts? If not, we will wrap us up and we'll be back again next week. Jose,
Final
what are you
thoughts.
taking
Well, I want to
away?
take away. I think we should take out a personal takeaway and ask the audience as well. When you're listening back to this or watching back this, we want you to have a takeaway because we don't just want you to watch and listen to this podcast. We want you to actually do something. So if you are going to take an action, can you just put "I'm in" the comments? Don't need to put it is. Just put "I'm in" the comments. That'd be
Yes,
fantastic.
absolutely.
So I just want to give my takeaway. My takeaway for this is that what price am I willing to pay for the things that I want to do? And it could be the smallest thing, Lee, about about maybe losing that little bit of weight that you talked about. But for me, it's what is it I'm gonna want to pay the price for, and I want to just keep going. And so for me, it's doing this content to help people and to continue to do that. I'll do it forever. That is my takeaway, and that's the price I'm willing to pay, because it does take time, but that's the price I'm willing to take. We're doing that as well with this weekly podcast, so that's my
Indeed.
takeaway. Keep considering the price, keep making it happen, just keep going, and that's mine.
Sir Ryan of Boniface.
You will find your inspiration to create things outside of your comfort zone. That we use this as a takeaway all the time, but if you get out of your comfort zone, you'll find ways to survive, and that's a pure way that today's podcast can be taken away as a message: is you find a way to survive.
Absolutely.
Oh, Ryan, that's so good.
And before I count us down, I will take away. We're gonna need a bigger boat. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I love that.
Inspiration Nation. Catch
Good.
you guys later.
Catch you guys later. Lee, you won this week. I love that photo, by the way, last time.
I just, yeah.